Epstein didn't kill himself. He didn't bank himself. He didn't employ himself. They are all in on it. They're all covering it up. They all deserve to face trial for their part in this crime against humanity and against America. But yeah, you're supposed to believe a single word out of this lying demon's mouth. This is way bigger than Trump.
Ian Caroll recently exposed Ghislaine Maxwell's recent lies about her past and her association with Epstein. This as we learn more about Epstein's connections with Israel and in particular his close relationship with Ehud Barak. Ian Caroll also brings up some of the inconsistencies in her statements that make us very skeptical, to say the least, about the government's official narrative about Epstein. So let's get his take on this. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
In other PSYOP news, Ghislaine Maxwell was hired to do PR for the Trump administration last month when she sat down for an interview with Trump's former personal attorney and now Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche. The piece was so obviously just deal-making that Ghislaine would give glowing testimony about Trump to help clean up the massive shit tornado that has been his handling of the Epstein files, and in exchange, Trump moved her to a cushy new minimum security prison where she'll be more comfortable. I'm sure that she's also angling for a pardon by the end of his term.
It was clear from her testimony to Blanche she talked about how great Trump's accomplishments were, so that's a sure thing.
But the whole situation is just so insane from start to finish, and the response from Trump supporters was one of the most depressing things you could ever watch. Like, let's be clear. We discovered the world's most prolific child sex trafficking and blackmail ring. We took down the two apparent leaders of the network. One allegedly died mysteriously in prison while all the cameras were off and the guards were napping. And the other stood trial and was convicted in a court of law. In Ghislaine's trial, they chose to put the 4 best witnesses on the stand out of a pool of more than 100 accusers. She was convicted by a jury because of the mountains of evidence that proves her involvement. Not just victim testimony, documentation, photos, videos, financials. We know that Maxwell was recruiting these incredibly young girls herself, in person. We know where she was recruiting them from. We know how much she was paying them. We know the tactics that she was using, what she was saying. We know how they were covering it up. We know where the money was being banked. We know who the co-conspirators were, despite them all still walking free. And we have over 100 corroborating witnesses, basically all telling versions of the same story.
And yet there's no files to release. There's no documents or anything like that that would lead us to draw our own conclusions about this. We're just supposed to rely on what's been publicly released. And the farcical government narrative, this cover-up that stretched between the Biden administration and the Trump administration, that there's nothing to see here. No one else was implicated, no blackmail, no sex trafficking ring. He didn't have any associates, even though we know one of them offed himself in a French prison. His name's Jean-Luc Brunel, if you don't know about him. But Ian's exactly right. This tale that's being spun is absurd, and no one can believe it that's using their mind.
Ghislaine Maxwell was also charged with 2 counts of perjury that never actually went to trial because the DOJ agreed to settle those counts in order to secure the more important trafficking conviction. The perjury charges didn't go away because they weren't true. They never went to trial at all because they wanted to get things over with and put a bow on it. And then, when Trump is in hot water over Epstein, he sends his good buddy Todd Blanche to record a puff piece where Maxwell tells all the same lies she told on the stand that are demonstrably false, and now you're supposed to believe her.
Yeah, with no pushback, no serious questioning when Ghislaine clearly lied about things that were known to be lies by the FBI, by the very organization that collected the evidence from Epstein to begin with in 2019. That he should know our lies in preparation for this interview to be able to push back. He doesn't do that whatsoever, even on known things like the presence of cameras in Epstein's house. Her associations, she said, with Epstein was starting to be diminished in 2008, but we know that's not true, thankfully, to the sleuthing of people like Amber Speaks Up on Twitter. I highly recommend you following her, who follows the victims and, actual primary documents about Epstein's crimes. But Ian's exactly right. We cannot believe her.
Just stop and think about this for 1 second. Imagine that you lock up a murderer after an extensive trial with heaps of evidence and he's convicted on all that evidence, even though he says that he didn't do anything wrong, right? And then a year later, you go to him in jail and say, hey, did you do it? And he says, no. And so you're like, oh shit, dude, this dude must be innocent. He says he didn't do it. Case closed. Let's get this guy out. Set him free. He's all good, bro. That is what this thing with Ghislaine is. Okay? Here are just a couple of the...
Yeah, before he gets into laying this out, that's absolutely what's happening here. Moving her to a men's security prison in Texas that isn't the kind for sexual offenders like her, and that's what she was. That's what she went down for in a court of law. That is just preposterous. And you have a whistleblower that James O'Keefe exposed a few days ago saying and, swearing that the DOJ is violating their own policies by doing this, by giving her this privilege. It's why a lot of people think this is leading to a pardon. I don't think that'll happen until, if it happens at the very tail end of Trump's presidency, it's the only way he can fan the flames more on this cover-up, this scandal. But we'll see, I guess.
Blatant lies that Ghislaine told in her testimony. She said that there were never any cameras inside of any of Epstein's homes, and certainly never in any inappropriate places like a bedroom or a bathroom. She said this multiple times in very explicit and detailed language, like here, where she said, quote, no cameras anywhere outside of possibly things that I would consider normal. So the garage gate, something like that. A front door, Todd adds outside, like security cameras. Yeah, security cameras. And again, here, as just one more example of several where Todd Blanche said, but from what you know, you do not believe a camera exists, or a video camera or a camera that takes pictures inside of any of his residences. Correct. Despite the fact that we have literal photos of cameras in his bedroom, right? Despite the fact that the FBI confiscated binders of photos and videos on CDs from Epstein's mansion when they raided it and reported finding hidden cameras throughout the house.
Yeah, and they said this was all child porn, by the way, after first Bondi said that this is thousands of hours of Epstein molesting kids. That's out there on the internet, in the media. Pam Bondi's direct statements on this, not mine. And Sagar and Jetty did a lot of good investigatory work on here to show that, yes, they knew about these cameras existing. But did Todd Blanche push back at her at all? No, not whatsoever. This was a fluff piece, and, I don't blame Ian when he says that, the FBI essentially recruited Maxwell for PR. It's so absurd, but that's what this has come down to. This vile sexual offender, this perjurer, is being trusted to lead the narrative now on Epstein. This is what the administration's going on now. Maxwell's words. You can't make this up.
That is just scratching the surface of the evidence of video cameras and sexual blackmail that we have. Ghislaine also claimed that she never recruited anyone from Mar-a-Lago, which is where Virginia Giuffre was recruited from. Okay, except that Trump himself has corroborated that Virginia was recruited from Mar-a-Lago. And I can't help but notice that Mr. Blanche didn't even ask Ghislaine about one of the most significant pieces of evidence in the whole story, probably in the whole world. This photo of her with Prince Andrew and Virginia Giuffre taken in Ghislaine's own apartment in London. So, if Ghislaine didn't recruit and traffic children, then why is this 17-year-old girl from Palm Beach standing in Ghislaine's apartment halfway around the world with Prince Andrew's arm around her waist?
Well, I think she said she believes it's a fake photo like he farcically did, like Prince Andrew farcically did, but lots of forensic investigation has happened around this photo and analysis of it to disprove any notion that this was manufactured or it's a fake photo. It's a real photo. We know that from extensive study. And also, yeah, Todd Blanche was working for Trump, and Trump himself, working for Trump. Trump himself says that Giuffre was recruited from Mar-a-Lago. She denied that. No pushback from Blanche. This was a fluff interview. This wasn't to seek answers about Epstein and his past. Clearly so. Or if it was, there wasn't any kind of adequate response by Blanche to extract the truth out of lies, a sea of lies. Ghislaine Maxwell's life is a lie.
That's kind of weird. Well, Ghislaine's answer has always been that it's a fake photo. Prince Andrew ran with the same line, which is
Yeah.
probably the best that they can do, seeing as there's no other possible explanation for its existence. But that photo has been extensively verified by forensic experts, by the photographer that originally broke the story, by a whole host of analysis.
Yeah, actually, I think it was processed at a Walgreens. An analysis was done on it to prove that that matched what Walgreens had as records for how it processed its photos back then, a 1 hour photo processing. That is the truth. It's not a fake photo, but again, no pushback. Prince Andrew gets away with it too. No charges against people that are associated with Epstein and engaged in sexual misbehavior, to put it lightly, more like rape and molestation, is to be more plain about it.
It's a real photo. Quote, the photograph also had a stamp that reads 000 number 15,
Yeah.
13th March 01, Walgreens 1 hour photo, which insinuates the picture was developed in a 1 hour service on 13th of March 2001 at a branch of Walgreens. Quote, a Florida-based photographic expert and court witness, Joel Van Hemel, also said he had no doubt the photo was genuine when shown the back of the photo. It was definitely produced in a Walgreens for sure, probably using a Noritsu or Fuji machine. Prince Andrew paid an undisclosed number of millions of dollars to Virginia Giuffre to avoid facing her in open court, and Ghislaine Maxwell herself paid Virginia her own undisclosed number of millions to settle a defamation suit that Virginia brought against her. But yeah, you're supposed to believe a single word out of this lying demon's mouth. And it's not even about Trump. This is not about Trump. I'm not claiming that this proves anything about the guy. This is way bigger than Trump. And if half the country can pretend like, oh, maybe Ghislaine's a good guy, maybe she's just telling the truth and wasn't even really doing all that much at all, and just because like you want Trump to be some paragon of angelic perfection is psychotic, okay? It's retarded. Stop it.
Yes, I'm so glad he's making this point. This thing goes deep. Its tendrils run far and wide around people of prominence, people in the political world, people in the technology world that were associated with Epstein. The prominent people that he extracted leverage from, likely under this Israeli-based intelligence operation that took the manifestation of a sex trafficking ring, that is far and deep wider than Trump. So I know a lot of the Democrats are trying to weaponize this against Trump. A lot of Republicans tried to weaponize this against the Democrats and Clinton and Biden back during Biden's term. But, you know, the typical thing that you have to think about here is what's the most plausible scenario. It's that multiple people, parties, and tribes are all wrapped up in this thing. That explains the cover-up from all angles. That explains why Biden didn't give you the truth on this. It explains why Trump's covering up. Whether or not he is personally implicated or not, I'm open to either direction. But what I do know is they would be behaving this way if they're trying to cover up for people on their side and each other. It's a big club, and we're not in it.
You're making your team look so fucking stupid, it's hard to look at. Epstein didn't kill himself. He didn't bank himself. He didn't employ himself. They are all in on it. They're all covering it up. They all deserve to face trial for their part in this crime against humanity and against America. And if Trump is just scared that there might be a little bit of backlash on him because of like implications from the thing, it's like, if Trump didn't do anything wrong, then fucking let it out. And we will forgive you for being friends with him back in the day, bro. But like, whatever's going on now doesn't look like that. All these motherfuckers deserve to be tried, imprisoned, and maybe more.
Well, I'm not big on the expletives, but if you're going to ascribe them to types of supervillains that live among us and have, you know, immunity from legal prosecution, I guess that's where I'd apply that. That's where I'd apply that term, like Ian Caroll is right now. So, yeah, again, multiple power centers were involved in this. That's the most plausible thing. And whether or not Trump was implicated in any crimes or not, I think he would be behaving the same way as he would if people close to him or prominent donors or lobbyists or legal specialists that are close to him, he would be behaving the same way to cover it up. And that's what I think we're seeing here. That's also what I think we saw with Biden, not that the Democrats entertained any suggestion of divulging the truth on this back when he was in office either.
Okay, end of story. Except that that's not the end of the story. Because last week, we got renewed attention on a set of leaked emails that actually hit the internet a couple of months ago, but they took some time to circulate and be verified and dug open. Over 100,000 emails to and from Ehud Barak are on the internet and available for download. And I spent the last couple of days completely sidetracked by trying to find some way to get AI to help me organize and scrape through all of them to get a sense for what they actually contain.
So I have to confess, I've read through some of these emails too, go down the rabbit hole. I haven't tried to read every single one of them, but I've started to do so too. I don't have any mass revelations from that, but just to let you know, Ian's not alone, man. This is my impulse too, once I saw that this was available and they were vetted. Using AI to sort through it's an interesting idea. Maybe I'll have to latch onto that and give that a try.
And I'm still just at the beginning of my analysis, but from what I've seen already, some very clear trends emerge. First off, the email trove only spans from October 10th, 2014 to September 9th, 2015. So that's an 11-month time period. And at least the data set that I have is specifically from that time period. I believe that some of the reporting coming out about Peter Thiel's part in the emails is being done by people with access to other caches of emails, because he's actually not in the main set that's going around.
Yeah, I don't have that either, but Whitney Webb has reported on Thiel's connection to Epstein, which was deeper than he admitted at first. If you want to take a look at that, take a look at her Substack. She's the best researcher on Epstein, if you ask me. But Ehud Barak was a former Israeli prime minister and a former head of IDF intelligence. And just let that sink in, that he was closest to Epstein after Epstein's first conviction for child molestation charges. When there were over 40 witnesses aligned against him, he got the sweetheart deal. And after that is when this former Israeli prime minister is closest to his association with Epstein. Just think about that. It's preposterous. It's insane.
So I plan to dig more into why that's happening later this week. But in just this 11-month range, there are over 83 emails in the file between Jeffrey Epstein and Ehud Barak. Many of them are short, basically, you up, boo. And many of them are asking to speak on the phone instead of over message, because these guys weren't dumb. They knew that their correspondences might one day wind up in the hands of some asshole like me and get plastered all over the internet, okay?
You up, boo, man. Ian cracks me up, but yeah, he's right. You've seen a lot of that. In these messages, they talk about contacting that person another way because they're not dummies. They know about the NSA surveillance state. They know about the fact that this is a permanent record. I mean, your phone records would be too, presumably, but there'd be other ways to skirt it, so he's right.
But it is readily apparent that these guys were working closely together on intelligence operations. Many of these emails are about organizing meetings with powerful individuals, gaining access, and exploiting relationships. Many of them are about money and investments. One big one that's mentioned repeatedly throughout this batch of emails is Reporty, which is a cyber tech company, an Israeli cyber company that's now known as Carbine 911. It has been extensively reported on by Whitney Webb. This is an Israeli military intelligence cyber startup that Ehud and Epstein eventually wound up investing in alongside Peter Thiel's Founders Fund, who invested $15 million in 2018. Jeffrey Epstein also invested $1 million in the company as early as 2016, using a bunch of offshore shell companies set up by Ehud Barak to hide Epstein's involvement in the deal.
Yeah, and why not? He was a sexual molester. He was a convicted pedophile. So that's what they had to do for this, to exchange money, to allow money to exchange hands. We also know that Epstein funded 2 essays that Ehud Barak wrote, one of which he didn't finish. Guess how much he paid him for that? $2.3 million. That was the obvious cover for some kind of intelligence exchange too. And, that's what we have from this connection. People talk about, hey, it's just a conspiracy theory. Epstein wasn't working for Israel. But he sure did have a lot of ties to Israel, including Ehud Barak, and that's not the only one. He was the protege of Robert Maxwell, the most famous Israeli spy, who books have been written about, who is buried on the Mount of Olives, attended by former Mossad chiefs, one of which said at a eulogy he did more for the state of Israel than today can be said. That's the truth. So I'm glad that Ian is diving further into this. I need to look more into these emails, maybe use AI to help. But each of these breadcrumbs left shows closer and closer connections with people of prominence in Israel, not only in the government officially, but also Israel's deep state. And people involved in intelligence operation as Israeli assets, like Ari Ben Menashe, who we know was a Mossad agent, and Israel tried to bury that truth. They said, no, he was just a low-level translator. But then he produced his passport, refuting their claims about what his actual role was. Ari Ben Menashe said that Epstein was conducting a blackmail operation, and he admitted it to me. We also have evidence that he was very closely associated with Douglas Leese and Adnan Khashoggi, people running arms during Iran-Contra and other deals in the 1980s on behalf of the U.S. and Israel. That was a U.S. joint Israel venture, by the way, if you don't know about it, because American lawmakers were prohibited by law to funneling arms to the Contras. But that was the waypoint to send the arms first to Israel, and then Israel would distribute them. So that's where we're at. Thanks, Ian, for covering this. Totally agree. Maxwell is a lying fraud. She's trying to lobby and campaign right now for a pardon, speaking so glowingly about Trump, glazing him entirely in that interview. It's really pretty pathetic and obvious what she's doing if you look at that transcript or listen to the interview, because the FBI did release it. There were some redactions, but I'm glad they released it, because I didn't even think they would release that interview. I'm glad they did that, but we still don't have answers in the form of the Epstein files. Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Ro Khanna and a bunch of Democrats are trying to get that, but they're being spoiled. Mike Johnson is trying to dig his heels in on the cover-up, despite the fact that Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene are standing with the actual victims, demanding to follow the Massie and Greene plan. They're saying, nope, these are fake victims, nothing to see here. Epstein didn't have any associates, no blackmail. That's what they're going with. That's what they've gone with the entire time. But we need answers. We can't let this story go away. I'm not going to let it as long as I can. As long as people are interested in this, I'm going to put forth what I know about it, and thankfully Ian is too. But I do want to hear from you. Let me know down below. Is Ian Caroll right about this? Can anything that Maxwell says be trusted? What is the only route available to people if the government successfully keeps this covered up? Do we have to rely on a whistleblower? Let me know in the comments down below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, also subscribe to Ian Caroll. He does a great job covering this case. I'm so glad he's out there talking about it still. And please consider becoming a YouTube member. If you click the join button below, you can help support the channel. And in return, I'll grant you access to all of my videos before they go live to the general public on YouTube. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.